It's that time again. Time for another episode of Shelve It or Shove It, the completely superficial way to pick books for your TBR based solely on their covers. I am your host, Daisy X Machina, the drag queen detective who investigates all things speculative in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. And as usual, I'll be going through Goodreads and looking at young adult, science fiction, and fantasy new releases, just looking at the cover to pick at least one to add to my TBR for July. Let's get started with young adult, and first up is Helen Behrens' You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight, author of Cinderella is Dead. I have actually read Cinderella is Dead. It's a fairy tale retelling, which was okay. This looks more like a thriller. I think this author has really just done fairy tale retellings, so I am kind of curious about this thriller. Actually, it looks almost like a horror, and I like the cover. I like the illustration. I like this young woman running for her life, I think, with a cabin in the woods. Just based on this artwork, I really like this artwork. It's really giving me something. I'm going to shelve it. Next up is What Happens After Midnight by K.L. Walther, author of Broken Rules. Don't know this author. Now, it's a good contrast for the previous cover because I think maybe they're similar genres, horror thriller. But whereas the other one had an illustration that really drew me in, this one is pushing me away. I don't like this illustration. It looks kind of simple. The colors are odd, this sort of dull purple, bluey tones, which I guess is supposed to be midnight colors. I don't like it. I don't like this illustration, so I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is Ride or Die by Gail Agnes Musakov-Anhu. It's all fun and games until you meet your match is the tagline. And again, I'm getting thriller. I think young adult thrillers are a big deal because we're seeing so many of them now. Maybe it's a horror. No, I don't think it's a horror. But I also don't think it's going to be a straight up romance, even though I bet there's a romantic subplot because we have a young woman looking in this rear view mirror, and dangling from the mirror is one of those photo booth shoots with 3 people and some dice. I don't think I'd be interested in this one just based on the cover, so I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is Kismet Connection by Ananya Devarajan. I'm really messing up names today. Apologies. Anyway, it's a romance, obviously. Kismet. At first I thought Kismet, but I don't think that's same word, but it looks like these 2 people dressed in Indian type clothing. It's not the type of illustration I really like. It's kind of cartoony, and it's a romance, so of course I'm going to have to shove it. And finally, in young adult, Going Bi-Coastal by Dahlia Adler. And I don't mind this cover because it's really clever in telling me something about the story. Bi-coastal, bisexual, and on one coast there's a girl, and another coast there's a boy, and there's the, I assume, main character, young lady in the center with 2 different outfits. I like this cover. There's more than one path to happily ever after. If you're into bisexual romances or looking for a young adult bi romance novel, this might be for you. I don't like romances, so I'm going to have to go ahead and shove it. Now we move on to science fiction. And first up is On Earth as it is on television, a novel by Emily Jane. The cover itself, very briefly, is kind of boring, but we see the spaceship. The font's sort of funky with different colors. But what I love about this is the title, On Earth as It Is on Television. I love this title. It's sort of satirical, religious, something about alien spaceships. This is one of those cases where just based on the title, I might consider it. Oh, what the heck. Let's go ahead and shelve it. Next up is Translation State by Ann Leckie. Now, I love Ann Leckie's Ancillary Justice series. I think that is a must reading for any sci-fi lover. That said, I don't know about this cover. This cover looks really boring. I'm sure it's not doing justice to an Ann Leckie book. There's this sort of ombre from red to green, and there's these symbols with something around it. I don't know if this is AI, robot, space. I don't like this cover. I'm going to have to shove it. Next up we have The Memory of Animals by Claire Fuller. This is a weird cover. I'm assuming it's an ecological disaster with a flood because we have Bambi and we have water and there's fish in the water, so maybe some type of flood kills the animals. I am getting depressed just thinking about it. I have to say the cover's kind of striking. It's just not the type of story, at least that the cover's telling me, that I'm that interested in. So I'm going to have to go ahead and shove it. Next up is The Road to Roswell by Connie Willis. Oh my gosh, this cover is kind of reminding me of As Earth as It Is on Television, the one book I shelved already. And it's Connie Willis, who isn't really known for comedy, but this looks like a humorous type book. And it's very cartoony, but it's kind of funny. It has a spaceship drawing a cow up, and I don't know. I would actually be impelled to read the blurb on the back, but we're just looking at the cover. And this cover, especially by this author, this humorous type cover for this author, I'm having questions, so I'm going to have to shove it. Next we have The Archive Undying by Emma Mieko Candon. And there's a recommendation by Tamsin Muir that says, giant robots stomp around a harsh and tactile world of ruined cities and unknowable AI gods, which is all one could ever need. I like this cover a lot. This cover is gorgeous. I love this building, or this whatever it is, this tower with a smaller one behind it, these ocean waves, archive undying. Maybe this is a library type situation. I like this cover. I'm going to have to shelve it. Now we move on to fantasy. First up is The First Right Thing by J.R. Dawson. It's kind of boring. I mean, there's this circus tent. I'm getting like Night Circus because it's a dark cover and there's a circus tent, but the cover is not doing enough for me to shelve it, which means I'm going to shove it. Next up is Psyche and Eros by Luna McNamara. Who said true love is a myth? Hey, not that fond of the cover. Don't really like the color choices, but I'm assuming it's a Greek retelling of some myth, Psyche and Eros, love story. Not for me. I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson. And it says right away, book 2. of the HMRG trilogy, so thank you for letting me know that I shouldn't pick this up because it's the second novel in a series. And the cover is kind of ugly. I mean, it has this moth with a skull on it and the 3 moons, but I don't think it's very pretty, especially with this pink and yellow color choice. So obviously I'm going to shove it. Next we have 8,000 Recipes for Revenge by Beth Cato. I quite like this cover. The title is really intriguing, so some type of witch alchemy situation with a bottle that's magic, but for revenge, so it sounds a little dark. And the title sort of has a funny, cheeky ring to it, so I like this. I'm going to go ahead and shelve it. And finally in fantasy, and our final book we're going to look at is The Surviving Sky by Kritika H. Rao. Love this illustration. There's this floating city, and it looks like a modern city. Those look like skyscrapers at the top, and something really bad is going on at the bottom. It looks sort of apocalyptic. I'm assuming this is a floating island rather than like a reflection of good on top and bad on the bottom, or healthy on top and ill on the bottom, like sometimes you see covers doing that. I think this is just one full picture. It is really pretty, really gorgeous. Which means I'm going to shelve it. We shelved 5 books. That's a lot for me. You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Barron. On Earth as It Is on Television by Emily Jane. The Archive Undying by Emma Mieko Candon. 1,000 Recipes for Revenge by Beth Cato. And Surviving the Sky by Kritika H. Rao. And again, apologies if I'm mispronouncing the names. I think I'm going to say no to the young adult. You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. So that leaves us with 2 science fiction and 2 fantasy. And I just want to pick one. I may read more down the road, but just for the month of July, I'm just going to put one on my TBR. So, On Earth as It Is on Television is going to be sort of humorous, I'm pretty sure. Archive Undying is more of a serious science fiction. 1,000 Recipes for Revenge, I think maybe a little bit humorous or a little bit cheeky. Surviving Sky looks straight up fantasy, and I'm curious about the setting on this one because I see skyscrapers. So is it contemporary fantasy or something else? Could be futuristic fantasy. So, you know what? I've been reading a lot of serious books lately. I think I want something lighter. So I'm going to say no to Archive Undying and The Surviving Sky. And so I'm looking at 2 books that may be a little bit cheeky or witty or light. And of these, let's go with the science fiction. On Earth as It Is on Television. I can't believe I'm picking this one, but who knows what I've gotten myself into. Let's go ahead and read the blurb. First contact stories have never been as intoxicating and fun as in Emily Jane's novel of the sudden arrival and equally sudden departure of spaceships above Earth. The arrival of spaceships can bring up a lot of big questions. What does it mean that we're not alone? Why did aliens come here? Who knew beforehand? Where are the aliens going? Wait, they just can't leave without inviting us into their galactic federation, or at the very least, obliterating us. In Emily Jane's debut, a rollicking paean to what it means to be alive in the 21st century, the fleeting presence of alien vessels, and the certainty that humans are not alone in the universe sparks intense uncertainty as to our place within it. Blaine has always been content to go along with whatever his supermom wife and television-addicted, half-feral children want. But when the kids blithely ponder skinning people to see if they're aliens and his wife announces a surprise road trip to Disney World, even steady Blaine begins to crack. Half a continent away, Heather, bored in a Malibu pool, while the ships hover overhead, watches as the arrival heralds the demise of her dead-end relationship and sets her on a quest to understand herself, her accomplished and oh so annoying stepfamily, and why she feels so alone in a universe teeming with life. And Oliver, suddenly conscious and alert after 20 catatonic years, struggles to piece together broken memories and understand why he's following a strange cat on a westward journey and into the greatest adventure of his or anyone's lifetime. I'm really not sure what I've gotten myself into, but this novel sounds like a hoot. It's reminding me a lot of that Hank Green book about the remarkable thing with the alien samurai, whatever. Anyway, this is a debut novel, so I am very interested in reading debut novels because it's always fun being the one to first discover an author. Emily Jane is the author's name. We know it's going to be multi-POV. There's at least 3 characters we're going to focus on, and I'm sure they're going to somehow come together at some point. Well, we know it's science fiction, but it sounds like it could be a lot of satire too. The title seems like a play on religion on Earth as it is on television. I didn't get any of that from the blurb, but we'll see when we read the book. For some reason, I'm getting Mars Attacks, which I wouldn't be mad at if that's the type of book we're going to get. Let me know what you would have picked based solely on the covers. Let me know down in the comments. And while you're there, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.